So hello everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. In this video we're going to be looking at the Aztron composite boards. We've already done a complete overview of the Aztron range, but this video we're really going to be looking at the composite boards, the main boards that you can buy from Aztron, because a lot of you out there are buying inflatable paddleboards and getting into the sport through iSUPs, but there are so many other board choices out there that you can be buying to get into paddleboarding or progress your paddleboarding to the next level. Now, as I said in the other overview video, Aztron are quite a unique brand to be at this price point and produce inflatable paddleboards, the amount of paddleboards they produce, and also producing a composite range of boards as well. There isn't a massive range of composite boards to confuse you, which is quite nice. There's the key sizes in there. Remember basically the difference between a composite board opposed to an inflatable paddleboard, apart from the fact you blow up inflatable paddleboard, really is the design characteristics and shapes that the designer can put onto a composite board. The rocker, the curve of the board can be much better. It can be a much more efficient board to paddle opposed to an inflatable paddleboard. The rail shapes of the boards, the fin setups, they can all be designed and tuned much more efficiently to make the boards faster to paddle, better in the surf. They are stiffer too, obviously, because they are composite and there's carbon materials in a lot of these boards. Inflatable paddleboards can perform as well as composite paddleboards as well, but it really comes down to the conditions and the disciplines you're likely to be paddling in. So composite boards really are the better board choices when you want to have a more performance base board under your feet opposed to an inflatable. There is still going to be a huge market out there for inflatable paddleboards, but if you are really wanting to get a better board to paddle and perform on, the hard composite board market is still the market you should be looking at. So the Aztron composite range for 2020, they are all sitting at very competitive price points, definitely compared to some other brands in the market, which may be 2-3 times the price of these boards. They are good value boards to get you onto composite boards. Aztron's basically got 4 types of composite boards. You've got the Apus, which is a surf-based board. That's the smallest board in their range. Then they do the all-round based boards, which are the Eclipse and the Dupit. And you can get the touring, fast cruising based boards, which are the Apollo and the Martian. And they do one fast paddling race board in 2020, and that is the Lightspeed. So let's look at the specifications for each of those ranges. If we get the Apus first up on the screen, it's 9'4" long by 32 wide. The literage comes in at 155 litres. This exact board, when we weigh it, weighs 9.14 kilos. The construction of the board, it's a full carbon board, so that does mean it's a very light board, and it is extremely tough on the top deck and down on the side of the rails. With the all-round boards, you've got the Eclipse and the Dupit. The Eclipse is the bigger base board. 11 foot long by 31 wide, it's 4.75 inches thick, brings the volume in at 280 litres, and when we weighed that board it weighed 12.67 kilograms, still a fairly lightweight board for its overall size. The Dupit, which is the board finished off with a wooden deck in front there, is 10'8" by 32.5, and that's 4.7 inches thick. The volume is less than the Eclipse at 210 litres, and that board weighs 12.87 kilograms. The constructions and the price points of those two boards are very different. The Eclipse is a soft EVA decked board, and even the bottom is a HDP slick bottom. It's actually the sort of bottom you'd find on those but more performance body boards. They've got a little bit give. You can even push your finger into the bottom of the board. Great benefits to that board for families, for people getting into the sport, but that board retails with a paddle at $499, so that's a really cheap price point for getting into the SUP. It easily contends with a lot of iSUPs on the market as well. The Dupit is a bamboo veneered board. It's an EPS foam core. It looks much more traditionally like other composite boards in the market. That board will offer you a bit more performance, which we'll speak about in a minute, but that price point still is a very competitive price point on the market. So looking at their two bigger touring fast cruising base boards, you've got the Martian and the Apollo. We haven't got the Martian with us, but we have been testing the Apollo. The Apollo is a 12'6" by 30 by 6.5 inches thick, and that is 260 litres. That retails at £899 and it weighs 16.90 kilograms. The Martian is a 12'6" by 27, so it's a narrower base board. It's still 6.5 inches thick, and because it's a narrow base board compared to the Apollo, it will be a faster board to paddle overall. But the fastest board will definitely be the Lightspeed. That comes in at a 14 foot by 24.5 and 8.4 inches thick. Still has a big volume of 290 litres, but bear in mind, because it is a narrow base board, it is designed for speed and getting going as quickly as possible. It's more of an all-round race shape, and that retails at £1,299 or €1,499. And the weight of that board when we weighed it weighed 13.90 kilograms. So you can see there's probably some boards in that range that will probably suit you or you're very interested into looking into getting. But what are the pros and cons over all of these boards? Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get the Apis in the surf during our review test window, so we are looking at this board and giving you more of our feedback on who should buy this board on the design and the shape of this board overall. We haven't actually managed to paddle it in the surf, but it still gives us a good idea of who this board should be aimed at. Looking at the pros with the Apis, definitely a big thing to highlight is the weight of this board. This board and the other board that we had in the last overview, they're very lightweight boards, and you do get a lot of board for your money. The full carbon construction, you really can feel it when you pick up and you feel this board. The overall shape of this board does look nicely designed. The tail at the back is fairly thin, so it's going to offer a good amount of bite and drive when you're surfing on your waves. Obviously, this board is going to be aiming more at the beginner, intermediate, or the heavier person wanting a more performance-based board, because it is still 32 wide. It's going to give you a nice amount of stability, and you've got enough glide length there to get yourself on those waves nice and early. The bottom shape of the board, you've got a single concave up at the front there, which is where the water holds in the front of the board. It helps you get onto the waves a bit earlier, and it also helps with a bit of straight line tracking when you're catching those waves. As you're moving back, you have a V, a raised centre bit that's coming up, and you have two small concaves either side. That's sort of a classic single to double concave board shape that you get on most more performance surfboards. Talking about the fins, a nice little feature, they come with FCS2 Connect fin boxes, which many other brands have got, but they actually come as standard with FCS2 side fins, so it's really nice that you actually do get the FCS2 fins with this package. The centre fin that comes with is a little bit basic, but I think in the future Aztron will be looking at upgrading that centre fin, but it's an easy fix that you can upgrade by buying a second-hand centre fin. Definitely for the price point, that fin is a small downside, but it's not a massive one. Looking at the rocker line of the board, there is a fair amount of nose rocker and a nice amount of tail kick at the back there. That will help the board really get into the tighter, more critical sections of the wave. So if you are a more intermediate advanced surfer and you're a heavier weighted surfer and you really want to get a wider, more stable board to get you into those tighter, faster pockets of the wave, this could be a board, the Apis, that will do that for you. But this board will actually get people into SUP surfing for the first time as well, because it's got that nice bit of length there, 9'4", and it's got that width there. It is going to be fairly easy for moderate weight paddlers. People first time paddleboard surfing up to about 80 kilograms, 75 kilograms should have not much trouble at getting onto this board, as long as you've already had a go on maybe a 10'5", 11 foot board before. This sort of board will take you into your SUP surfing quite happily because of those measurements. Other features I like about this board, you've got your EVA deck pad, which is different to the tail of the board. So you've got your diamond grip deck pad up here, and then you've got your sort of square, more traditional surf base deck pad at the back. A nice big kicker that you can ram your foot against when you are SUP surfing and charging down the line. The board also comes with sort of bungee straps at the front there, so you could use it for flat water touring. Probably not going to use this board really for flat water touring because it is on the slightly short side, but they are there and they do come with bungees if you want to use it for that. Now we'll give you some cons on the Apis. Now remember, we're giving you cons really on what we think the board should feel like on the water, so do take it as a bit of a guidance thing here. The rocker line is good for the more extreme, steeper, faster waves. Because of that, it is going to make the board slower to surf in the weaker, slower waves. So if you're surfing in real rolly beach breaks, this board won't be as fast as a flatter bottom board. The only other major con we have is the deck pad will definitely need to be further back to really get more performance surfing. Another inch further back would be able to get your foot further back over the fins, and you'll be able to drive and carve this board a little bit harder. They are small cons, but at the price point and for the weight, there is a good board in there in the Apis to get you on the water and into SUP surfing. So now let's look at the all-round boards. The Eclipse and the Jupit. The Eclipse, first of all, the Eclipse is the completely EVA decked board with a slightly soft bottom to it. The great thing about these boards is they are really great for the whole family. They're soft, they're a bit more forgiving, so if you're falling, jumping off them, you're not going to hurt yourself. Also, when you're putting the board down on the beach, on the pebbles, it doesn't matter. They're like that dividing line between a full composite board and an inflatable paddleboard. These types of constructions of boards are really popular in surf schools. They teach people to surf, they're sort of bomb proof, still give you that performance. So if you wanted to go and catch waves with this board, or you wanted to paddle a bit further with this board, you've still got the benefit of a composite board, and they're a little bit tougher like an inflatable board as well. So they do sit really comfortably in the middle of the market. And to be honest, a lot more people should be looking at these types of sort of indestructible boards. If you've got storage, if you can put it on the roof rack, or you've got a van and you don't need to inflate it all the time, they're still a fairly lightweight board. That is a very cheap price point. I mean, $4.99 with a paddle leash basically to get you on the water. That's a really good value price point product. It's a great general size for getting into paddleboarding the first time, catching some waves, going a bit of longer distance, going around the corner, a little bit of light touring. You can do a lot with this 11-foot size board. The only real downside or negative to these types of boards is because they are EVA wrapped right over the rails, that the rails and the deck does nick. You don't get scratches like you would do in a composite board, but you might find you might get nicks and little bits of abrasion on top of the EVA deck pad easier. So if you're walking past a spiky hedge and you grate some branches down the side of it, that would leave a line in the top or the deck of the board. It's a small thing to be aware of, but it's just something to consider compared to a more composite based board that will just shrug off a lot more of the scratches. And also, this board is a light board. You would find an inflatable paddleboard of a similar size will be around the same weight, but this is a composite board. Composite boards generally are a little bit more heavy than inflatable boards, but this one is a light composite board as well. So when you're carrying your board, getting it off the roof of the car, walking it to the beach, it's still a pretty good weight. So a lot of you may be looking towards the Eclipse, but you're also a bit undecided about the Jupit as well. What is the difference? Because they both do basically the same sort of job. They're both all-round boards. Yes, the Eclipse is slightly longer, so you're going to find it a bit more glide, but the Jupit, the rails are slightly more refined, the rocker line's a bit nicer, and when you haven't got EVA wrapped right over the rails of the board, you will find you will get some more performance gains when you go surfing. The Jupit is definitely more of a board that I would say you own on your own. It is your one board. You're willing to take care of it a little bit more. And the Eclipse is a board that you can let the whole family, friends jump on, put it down on the beach, be a little bit harsher on it than you would be if you were riding the Jupit. The Jupit, as I said, is going to scratch a little bit more on the bottom, and the Eclipse is a bit more of a solid, heavy-duty board with that slightly flexy bottom it has. Because the Jupit is that solid composite wrapped board with a bamboo veneer, you've got a really stiff board that's going to surf better, it's going to move better in and out and up in waves, you're going to be able to sprint a bit quicker and put a bit more power into the board. It's just a little bit more refined than the Eclipse. The Eclipse is more of your beginner, family, fun, enjoy paddleboarding for what it is, and the Jupit is the upper grade version of the Eclipse. Just a little bit more performance, maybe for that one person that wants to own and look after that board. The Jupit is a good value board for its price point. The downside maybe it's a little bit heavy than some of its competitors at similar price point, but not by very much, and you are getting a good looking bamboo veneered board for that price. So for some, it's a small downside having a little bit extra weight, but it does look a very good looking product. So now let's move into the touring fast cruising range of boards and really looking at the Apollo, which is the blue board here. 12.6 by 30, a good amount of length and still a relatively wide board, so it's nice and stable. And the big plus for this board is the actual bottom shape, and the overall shape of this board right to the tail is a really good design. It's got a nice fast waterline length, so it's a quick board to paddle. It's still nice and stable because it's got a nice amount of width right to the tail, so you are going to be able to paddle this more as a beginner intermediate paddler. I really like the rounded bow section underneath. It rides over chop nice and easily, and it doesn't make it too hard to use in windy or cross-shore winds where the wind is coming at you from the side. It makes it easy to paddle where you want to go, and the board very, very forgiving. You'll notice the rails on these touring boards are much squarer than the more all-round based boards, so therefore when you're rocking from side to side or you're getting a little bit off balance, the water finds it harder to wrap up over on top of the board and on top of the deck. Gives you that much more stability, which is why all the race boards have thicker rails again. So just bear in mind, thicker rails are going to give you a bit more stability when you're rocking from side to side. The narrower Martian, which we haven't got with us, would be a great board for the lighter paddlers wanting to paddle a bit faster, but the Apollo would take body weight riders up to about 115 kilos, and it will sit really comfortably around 100 kilos. You'd be quite comfortable using this board. The cons for us for the Apollo, it's a shame there isn't front bungees up at the front there. You've got a large area that you could put front bungees up there and you could store stuff up there. Yes, there are rear bungees and you can use those, but really the most amount of area on this board is just in front of you. So front bungees or even eyelets to put front bungees in would be a great thing to have. The other thing is the weight of this board. At 16.90 kilograms, it's a heavy base board. If you're going to be transporting at long distances, and especially if you've got touring kit with you, it is going to take a lot of your energy. So when you're on the water, it's not so much of a problem. It has a good amount of glide, but when you're transporting it off the water, if you're going to have to carry it long distances, it is going to be one of the major negatives for you. So now let's talk about the Lightspeed. Definitely one of the cheapest composite race boards on the market. A lot of you are going to be looking at this to get yourself into composite racing and maybe moving off from your inflatable paddleboard and buying a hard composite race board. Now this is a good construction board, full carbon wrap, fairly lightweight, and as I said, it hits a very good price point. The shape of the board, it does lend itself to all-round paddling, so it can do open water downwinding. It's not as fast as flat water paddling as some race boards because it has a little bit more rocker, but that's why it's so good in open water, catching bumps and just using it maybe in choppy open water estuaries. So if you're looking at buying a race board for real flat water racing, maybe not so much this board. Look towards a flatter base board. I think there's going to be some refinements over this board over the next few years, but it's good to see a brand like Aztron making a performance race board at a fairly cheap price point, and it's still at a really competitive weight. It's got everything a race board should have. It's got the handles that seem to be in a good place. It's got a small bungee area up here which doesn't get in the way when you're using it, and you can obviously put your drinks, your flip-flops and stuff under there. The tail of the board still offers a good amount of width, so when you're learning your step back turns, you can get back there nice and easily. It's got a kick pad at the back, which so many more expensive race boards haven't got, and also the fin it comes with as well. The fin it comes with is a good glass fiber fin. That is a lot better than some more expensive composite race boards out there. And the look of these boards, you know, it's a personal thing, but I personally think this is one of the better looking race boards on the market at the moment. The graphics, the styling, the way the carbon is brushed coming through the paint layer there, and it also makes it look a really good value product. The cons to the Lightspeed, the rounded rails, there's a fair amount of rounding under here, which makes it great for handling and moving in open water. Does make it a little bit more tippy compared to other similar boards on the market at the similar width. It's probably not going to make or break your buying decision, but if you are a bigger person, maybe you're the 95, 100 kilograms and you're looking to get on a smaller board, this board will not be as stable as other equivalent width boards on the market. Other negatives, it does hold a little bit of water in the standing area, not a massive amount, but enough that you are sort of standing a little bit of water when you've come up from your step back turn. So maybe in the future, some drainage holes there would help the board get rid of that extra water. Rider weights for the Lightspeed, obviously it comes down to your ability. If you're a fairly confident paddler, you've paddled quite a lot of race boards in the past, you're probably going to be able to push yourself up to 100 kilos on this board. And if you're looking at this board as a first time racer, up to about 90 kilograms would be the maximum I would recommend. So there we go. I hope you found that video informative and useful. Definitely the standout boards for us in this 2020 Aztron range are the Apus, because it's a very good price point, light paddleboard that's going to get you into SUP surfing, and it's really going to benefit the heavier riders wanting a more performance but yet very stable paddleboard to get into some good waves. So the Apus, definitely is one of our top boards out of this year. The other top board is the Eclipse. Not too many brands have got this EVA soft board approach in their range. It's still going to be great for the family, great for teaching your friends. It's a very good price point with a paddle and leash. £500, 500 euros, you are going to get on the water, and that is a good option opposed to looking at an inflatable paddleboard if you can store it. Otherwise, definitely the Lightspeed. There's some things that need to be changed with it, but it is a good value, light race board that is going to keep you up there with the fastest, more expensive composite race boards in the market. So if you're into racing or you're getting into racing the first time, the Lightspeed is a very good value race board that you should be looking at as well. They're the three standouts for us. The other boards have got their place and they are going to suit a lot of people, and we really hope that you found this review helpful and it helps you guide you towards which board will be best for you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out SUPboardermag.com for the full post on all these boards and more information, and of course check out SUPboarder Pro if you're mad keen on SUP. Until next time, we'll see you on another SUPboarder video. Thank you very much.